So in today's lecture, we will start next topic, which is topic 5. So start with topic 5. Topic 5 is about monopoly. In a previous lecture, when we study about perfect competitions, we already study about the different types of market, like as perfect competitions, monopolistic competitions, monopoly, and oligopoly. But in the previous topic, which was topic 4, we only look at the maximum profit in a situation when market has a perfect competitions. We do not look at the other forms of market. What will be happen, how firms will maximize their profit when we have a monopoly situation or oligopoly, right? Or monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition may be similar to the perfect competitions, but other two form of market in which firms generate or firm maximize its profit at different level. So that's why in topic 5, we will study monopoly. That's why it's important to understand the monopoly, that how, when we have monopoly situation, how firms will maximize its profit. What will be the graph, what will be the curve, what will be the profit areas, everything. It's like the same thing that we look at in a perfect competition situations, right? So topic 5 is about monopoly. So what monopoly is exactly, you know that we understand monopoly, so we will not go in very detail, but I'm going to give you some overview. What is monopoly, in case you forgot some characteristics of monopoly or what is monopoly, right? So what is the meaning? So we revise it. It's a revision of your topic 4. So first thing is it's a single market or single seller. Single seller. All right. Only one seller and large number of buyers. Second characteristics could be a unique product. A unique product or no substitution or no substitute product. No substitute product. This is a monopoly situation. And third thing is a barrier, right? It's hard to enter, or I would say that impossible. Impossible entry into a market. Impossible entry into a market. So the best example for monopoly is government. Government, like as any kinds of natural resources controlled by the governments. So that's called the monopoly. Or another examples could be diamond cuttings. There are some kinds of companies, they're involved in cutting the diamonds. So they are just only a companies, they involve in cutting diamonds. So that could be example of the monopoly, right? So the idea is few things we need to remember. So first thing is Consumer has no choice. Consumer has no choice because there is no any substitutes, right? Consumer have no choice. So consumer have two options: either pay the price, whatever price monopoly companies is charging, or don't consume the product. So it means either do or die, right? Buy or don't buy, right? So that's the few things. Okay, now another things we have to remember. So let's talk about, so no, that's the meaning of this. Consumer has no choice, right? Second thing we need to remember is uh, related to this, related to this. Which means single seller, single seller. So remember, a single seller a single seller is a industry, right? Single seller is an industry. You are the industry, right? You are the industry. So you will decide the price, because that's what we learn in a when we study about perfect competitions. In perfect competitions, we look at the demand curve was flatter, which is horizontal, right? Whereas when we compare, this is the firm in perfect competitions, right? Which is D equals to MR. And we compare with demand and supply, right? This is demand and supply, supply and demand, right? And this is the example of industry. And we learned that curve, demand curve is a flatter because industry is a price maker and firm is a price taker, all right? But if you are an industry, industry could be a group of many buyers, many seller, or industry could be a monopoly. Monopoly. All right. So means if you are a single seller, means you are an industry. If you are an industry, you are a price maker. You are a price maker because you are a industry. And that's this is a normal curve, which is demand and supply, but it doesn't mean that here is your MR equal MC. No, that's different. MR equal MC gonna have a different point, so we have to find a different point. But again, in order to understand MR equal MC, we have to look at some further things like how we estimate the marginal revenue. You already understand marginal revenue, which is the change in a price or change in a revenue divided by change in a quantity. All right, so this is called the marginal revenue. But again, you have to remember the concept to estimate the marginal revenue or marginal cost, right? So I repeat, marginal revenue means revenue uh, when you sell the additional units. By selling additional units, whenever your revenue change, revenue increase, that's called the marginal revenue. And marginal cost, by producing additional units, whenever your cost change, cost increase, that's called the marginal cost, right? So the concept you have to keep in your mind. Now, next is a So we already look at here, we looked at this single that we have to remember. Second thing is a consumer has no choice, which is unique product. That's why no choice. Your product is unique because no substitution, right? Now, next things we have to look at, impossible entry in a market, or it's not easy to enter in a market, right? There are various reasons that you cannot easily enter in a market. So let's have a look. That's we're gonna look at here now. This one. Now, why it's impossible to enter in a market. First thing is, if you have a ownership of vital resources, ownership of scarce resources and vital resources. So any kinds of resources that may come from the natural resources, all right, that come from the nature, and you have ownership on it, like as the mines. Especially mines are controlled by the government. Let's take example of the mines. If you have a control, you have a ownership on such kinds of mining industries, all right? So that's why you become a monopoly, right? Second thing could be legal barriers. Legal barriers. Legal barrier means only government is allowed to do that, like as the weapon manufacturing. So in Vietnam, weapon manufacturing comes under fully government, right? So private companies or any other competitions may not exist in that kind of things. Same another examples for legal barrier is the national resources, especially about the oils in Vietnam. So that's also oils and gases or petroleum, that's kind of industries and sectors that's also fully controlled by the government. That could be example of the legal barriers. Another examples for monopoly is the economic of scale. Economic of scale. You already understand economic of scales. This is your cost. This is your cost, let's say, which is fixed. This is your fixed cost, and you will maximize the number of production. This is your number of production. Number of production. All right. So let's say fixed cost is $100. If you maximize your number of production, your cost, this is your per unit, right? This is your, so if you maximize your number of production, your cost per unit will be reduced. That's called the economic of scale, right? Now, if there is a certain kind of economic of scales, but again, in economic of scales, you have to spend a large amount of money. And this is one time. This is your one time. If your industry or your firm has an economic of scales, you will be considered as monopoly. Why? Because if your industry has economic of scales, you will maximize the production. So you maximize the production, you increase your production, as a result, your cost will be reduced. However, same thing is not happening with the other firms who are in the market. Because if they what normally happens with the production? Production means if you maximize your production, your cost will increase. That's very general things happen. But your firms has an economic of scale system in your firms. Because if you're maximizing your production, your cost per unit will be reduced. Your cost per unit will be reduced. You will be more profitable than the other firms. If you are a more profitable than the other firm, to maximize the quality of the product, You maximize the better services. You maximize the more promotions, more discounts, more offers. So you will attract the consumer. And small firms or your competitor, step by step, they will exit the market. Why they exit the market? Because again, same situation will be happening with them. Is a perfect competition. They are a small firms. So if all consumer are coming to you, you eventually you become a price maker. If you become a price maker, so those competitive firms will become a price taker. So they have to listen to you. All right. And you reduce the price. Why you reduce the price? Because you can control your cost by maximizing the production. But if they will maximize the production, their cost will increase. All right. So that's why, so exactly that's why here, this is the MR for firms, sorry, MC for the firms. So if they cannot sell, they cannot maximize the additional, because if they maximize the additional, then MC will be greater than MR. If MC will be greater than MR, because their cost increase, they cannot control the cost, but their price is fixed. Their price is fixed. So they cannot make profit in longer run, but you will make profit in long run because you are a monopoly. All right. If they exit, you have a better control over the market. All right. So that's why it's, you will be, if your firms has an economic of scale system, you will be considered as a monopoly. You will be considered as a part of monopoly. All right. So that things you should remember that. Right. Okay, so let's move on to the next, price and output decision for monopolistics. If you have any question, you stop me, I will explain. So this is the basic things about your monopoly that you need to know before we move on to the further. Next is a price and output decision for monopolistic. Price and output decision for monopolist. Okay, let's have a look at the demand curve. Let's have a look at the demand curve. Demand curve for, so demand curve for monopolist. Monopolist means the firm who control the market, and demand for competitive, demand curve for competitive firm. Competitive firm. So that's the demand curve for competitive firm, right? And that will be demand curve That will be demand curve for monopolist. So this is the demand curve, and this is the demand curve. All right, that's basic the difference. Why demand curve? Monopolist demand curve is like negative or downward for monopolist. Same thing, you are an industry, right? You are an industry. If you are an industry, you are also a price maker, whereas firm are the price taker. So you are a price maker. You decide the price, and you are a price taker. Price taker. And remember, here demand equals to marginal revenue, right? And here we will have a look marginal revenue later, because before we move on to marginal revenue for monopolist, we have to look at the various things, especially the numbers. I'll show you some numbers, so that number will help you to understand why the marginal revenue for monopolist is different than the competitive firms, and why it's like this, right? Okay. Now, a few things remember. For monopolist, we are talking about monopolist. Competitive firms, you know that. Monopolist demand, under monopolist, demand and marginal revenue both are downwards, right? Both have a negatively slope. Negatively slope. Right. So why we call it negatively slope? Quickly remember one thing. So it's a zero, it's a positive, it's a negative, right? So if it's going down, so it means it's going to the negative way, right? So that's why this is called negatively slope. So this is the language, sometimes we use it in economics, all right? So remember this thing, right? So it's a positive, it's a negative. So if it's going to the down, so this is called the negatively slope, right? Okay. Now both are negatively sloped. Both are negatively sloped means your marginal revenue will be negatively sloped, same as demand. Like as here, both are flatter. Both are horizontal. Both are flatter. Demand and marginal revenue, right? Same, both are negatively sloped. Now the question is, why monopolists are negatively sloped, right? Why it's a negatively sloped? In order to understand negatively sloped, we have to go back to the our topic 3, which is demand and supply, right? In that topic, we look at the demand, right? Demand curve. In order to understand the demand curve, we try to understand the relationship between price and the quantity, all right? Price increase, quantity demanded decrease, all right? Price decrease, quantity demanded increase, all right? So monopolist firms, they are exactly doing same thing. Monopolist firms, they know that. One thing keep in your mind, food items cannot be monopolist, all right? It's a necessity, all right? So of course, it cannot be food items, so you cannot say that doesn't matter price increase or decrease, consumer always demand for the food, right? So I'm not taking example of food in food items. Maybe I'm taking some other kinds of items where either consumer take it or don't use it. Consumer have just these two options. Consumer will consume it or consumer will not consume it. Why consumer will consume it? The reason is that price is low. That's why consumer consume it. But if the price increase, consumer will not consume it. Consumer doesn't want it, right? So that's exactly happened in the monopolist. Now, why monopolist demand is a negatively, it's a marginal revenue is negatively sloped. The reason is the same thing. Price increase, people less demand for this monopolist product of that monopolist, right? Monopolist firm. If monopolist firm reduce the price, demand will increase. All right. So that is the reason the curve is a negatively sloped. Same concept that we have looked at the demand curve concept by finding the relationship between price and quantity. Same concept apply to the monopolist. That is the reason the demand curve and marginal revenue curve are negatively sloped. All right, because of this reason. The idea is that why it's negatively sloped? Because we are talking about, remember, we are talking about monopolist. So remember, if you want to sell the large quantity, you have to reduce the price. That's the only option you have, all right, to maximize your sales, all right? Because if you do not reduce the price, consumers stop demanding for that product. They don't want that product, all right? So that's the reason this demand and the marginal revenue both are negatively sloped. Okay. Now, we move on to the next. Before we move on to the next, again, we have to look at the competitive market. So you have to give me answer of this question. Under competitive market, can you tell me marginal revenue is equals to the market price, is less than market price, or higher than the market price under competitive firm? Tell me. I repeat my question. Under competitive firm, marginal revenue is equals to the market price. Can you tell me under monopolist or monopoly situation, like in competitive, so competitive firm, what is the marginal revenue of competitive firm? Is it MR equals to the price, market price, MR less than market price, or MR more than market price? Tell me, what happened under competitive firm? MR equals to P. Yes, that's right. Under competitive firms, MR equals to the P, all right? MR cannot be more than P because market decides the price. MR less than P. If MR less than P, you will lose opportunity. You want to maximize the profit. That's why you will not sell at this price, because market price reach at P. All right. Okay. Now, how about monopolist? If the firm is monopolist, what will be happen in a monopolist firm? What do you think? MR equals to P, MR less than P, or MR more than P? P means the price. Price is the, you can say the old price or the previous price. Tell me, what do you think? Under monopolist, your MR, which is marginal revenue, is less than P. All right, marginal revenue less than P. Why? Because your marginal revenue is negatively sloped. It's a negatively sloped. Negatively sloped means law of demand will apply. Negatively sloped means law of demand will apply. Demand will apply, which means if you wanna maximize the quantity demand, you want your quantity demand will increase in a market, you have to reduce the price. Same thing we just looked at back, right? Negatively sloped. So this is the rule of the negatively sloped, which is D. This is negatively sloped, right? The rule is that price, so if this is the price, this is the quantity. You reduce the price, quantity increase, right? So that's a negatively slope. So if you wanna demand quantity demanded increase, you have to reduce the price. If you reduce the price, price will be lower than the marginal revenue. Oh, sorry, marginal revenue will be lower than, so means marginal revenue means you will sell. You will sell at this price. You will sell at this price compared to the previous price or the market price. You have to reduce it. So that's why your demand will increase. Otherwise, consumer will not consume because the price is too high. So you have to reduce the price if you want your quantity will increase. All right. So that's the, so keep in your mind, this thing happened. That's one of the major difference between competitive firms and the monopolist firms. Right? That is the reason. This is the reason for it. This is the reason. Whole reason here. Because of this reason, your MR less than price. Now let me give you some numbers in order to understand where we can find how the graph looks like, or where we can find the profit areas, profit area or loss areas, whatever. Um, okay. But before we move on to the the calculations or the numbers, because I have to give you calculation first, number first, then I will draw a graph. Because if I draw the graph, you may not understand why this curve is in this directions and why this and that. So before I show you calculation, few things you need to know. That thing I will clarify later when I will draw the graph. So with the help of graph, you will get the detailed information of these kind of things that I'm going to write here. First thing, remember your marginal revenue curve is under D curve. It's always, let's say, if this is your D curve, your marginal revenue curve will be here. All right, it will be always under the D curve. Why under the D curve? If no demand, you can't sell it. The basic concept is it. Marginal revenue cannot be like this. Right? Marginal revenue cannot be like this. And it cannot be equal. D cannot be equals to MR. D cannot be equals to MR. All right? So that's why MR is less than P. So MR curve is under D. D curve, demand curve. Right? This thing you have to remember. And another thing is, what else? MR curve is under D. Okay, I think now we move on to the calculations part. Then I'll show you later if I need. I will write down later. So I'm going to write some numbers here, and then we will use this number to draw the information. Right? So let's say these are the products. You have a products. So I'm just giving some random. And that's the price per unit, right? Which is 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, and 10. That's your price, right? And that's your total. This is your quantity, right? This is your quantity demanded, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? And this is your total revenue. Right? Total revenue is price multiplied by quantity is a total revenue. So total revenue, so the total revenue here is 0 because the price of 1 unit is 20, but demand is 0, so it's 0, right? So that's gonna be 18, that's gonna be 32, that's gonna be 42, that's gonna be 48, and that's gonna be 50, right? You can see one thing you can see that as quantity demanded is increasing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the price per unit is decreasing. All right, that exactly happened under monopolist form. all right? So because of negatively sloped. So this is the best example of the negatively sloped, right? Now, next is a marginal revenue. Marginal revenue means the revenue that we are generating by selling additional units, all right? So here, marginal revenue, which is 18, right? Same thing, change in a total revenue. I write the formula for marginal revenue. It's a change in a total revenue, change in a total revenue divided by change in a quantity. All right, same formula that we looked in a previous class, previous lecture, topic 4. Next is this, and which is 14 and 10. Here, 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 and 2. This is your marginal revenue, right? Next is your total cost. For example, total cost is given in your question. Total cost is a 12, 17, 23, 30, 40, and 55. That's your total cost. And next is a marginal cost, because we need MR, MC. Marginal cost. Marginal cost is same thing here, right? Which is 5, 6, 7, 10, and 15, right? This is your marginal cost, all right? Now we will we calculate the profit. That's the main thing that we want to calculate. We calculate the profit using these numbers. We calculate the profit or loss using these numbers, and we will find where we have a maximum profit. Means that's our main objective, profit maximization. We have to find the maximum profit point. Like when we look at the competitive firm, maximum profit point is a MR equals to P in competitive firms, and in monopolist firms it's a MR less than P. So we have to find where marginal revenue, right? Marginal revenue is less than P. But remember, the meaning of maximum profit is, the meaning of maximum profit here is if you sell additional units, maximum profit point. If you try to sell more, you will have a loss. That's exactly happened in a competitive firms. When we find the maximum profit point, if you exceed that point, you're gonna have a loss. All right? If you exceed that point, you're gonna have a loss. We will do the same thing here. You can see, you can easily understand, you can easily see that this is your MR, right? This is your MR. And this is your P. ABC. Yes, ABC. Yeah. This is your, okay. MRP, MR, again MRP, MRP, all MR is less than P, 18, 20, 14 for this, 10 for this. So we don't know which MR will give us maximum profit. How we can find where is the maximum profit? So that's why we have to estimate here profit. By looking at this information, we can easily understand which unit are the maximum sales units that will maximize the profit. If you go beyond that, if you increase, sell more than that, you're gonna have a loss, right? Let's have a look. So we're gonna calculate the profit. So how are we gonna calculate profit? The profit will be total revenue. So profit will be, profit will be total revenue is minus marginal cost, right? Total revenue minus marginal cost, or revenue minus marginal cost. So revenue is here. So it's a loss, minus 12, loss, right? And 1 plus 1 is a profit, right? 18 minus 17, 32 minus 23, it's 9. 42, no, sorry, I misunderstood. Total cost, total revenue minus total cost. That makes sense. Why I'm writing marginal cost. Total revenue minus total cost is a profit or loss. Next is 42. 42 minus 30, which is 12. 48 minus 40, which is 8, and revenue 50, cost 55, it's a loss. All right. So loss, profit, 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 and loss. So we have to find the point where we can have a maximum profit. Where we can have maximum profit. Maximum profit point. Here. This. It's a maximum profit point. Right? Maximum profit point means A, B, C, D. D. Right? D. So at this point, you are maximizing your profit. Maximizing profit. means if you sell 3 units. If you sell less than 3, which is 2, you will lose opportunity to maximize your profit. But if you sell more than that, which is 4 or 5, you will have a low profit or you have a loss. So this point give you maximum profit point, all right? And one more thing, maximum profit. At maximum profit, your marginal revenue is less than the price. Your marginal revenue is 10. All right, your marginal revenue is 10 and your price is yes, 14. Price is 14. Marginal revenue is 10 and the price is 14. That's also meet the one of the conditions for the profit, right? For the maximum profit. Now let's have a look at how can we understand this situation through the graph. So I will show you the marginal revenue curve first, how to find the marginal revenue curve. Once we find the marginal revenue curve, then we find the profit area using average total cost. Average total cost is the same like as the competitive firms, fixed cost, variable cost divided by 2, right? Let's have a look at the so we draw the demand curve first. So let's say this is your demand curve. All right. Now let's look at the price first. So let's say here is, we're gonna use the same information here. Better you take a picture for this information because we use these informations to draw the graph, right? So when I draw, then you can see this information side by side. Better you take a picture of this one. Okay, let's have a look. Now, demand curve. So demand curve means here is a 20, all right? This is 20 because as you can see, the maximum price is a 20, right? Okay, can you tell me what is the maximum revenue? At what price maximum revenue? $20 is a market price. That, but what will be the total revenue? Total revenue gonna be 16, right? Not 18. 16 because here gonna be 0. So this one gonna be 16, right? And here is a 14. So draw this one here. This is your demand situations, right? So 16 for 2, right? 16 for 2, quantity 2. 16 for 2, 14 for 3. 14 for 3. This is quantity. and this is your price and marginal revenue. Price and marginal revenue. And now we have to find the marginal revenue curve. But before we look at the marginal revenue curve, we need to look at a few things here. We have to identify what this area is about, what this area means, and what these areas means. All right, and what this area means. Remember, this is 0 to 2. 0 to 2, here you are not generating any revenue, marginal revenue. You can see here, right? You can see here, 0 to 2. Okay. So here is not generating anything. This point, this area is your total revenue or maximum revenue, you can say that. Total revenue. And this area is your revenue gain. Total revenue gain. We are looking for marginal revenue. So you can see that marginal revenue is 10, right, as that we identify here. So this is the 10, which means your curve gonna be, and how many quantity for this one is 10, 14 to 3. So for 10 is quantity 2 to 3, between 2 to 3, right? So 2 to 3 will be here, right? So the point gonna be somewhere here. Quantity is, let's say 2.5. 2 to 3 means 2.5. 2.5. We took it average. So this is 2.5, and the price, let's say the price is $10, which is the marginal revenue. At what price we gonna sell it. So this point means here. This is your marginal revenue. Right? This is your marginal revenue, and this is your D. So marginal revenue is less than D. All right? Okay. Now the question is, okay, I forgot to write here, loss. Why it's a loss? Why this area? Why it's a loss area? As what we discussed before, if you wanna maximize your quantity demanded, you have to reduce the price. So if you reduce the price, you lose the revenue. All right, so that's what this is called, the total revenue loss. So this point is the total revenue loss. But if you reduce the price, quantity demanded will increase. As a result, your total revenue will be increased. That's what we also look at. One of the factors to increase the revenue is reduce the quantity, right? So you will increase the quantity, reduce the price, quantity demanded increase. So you can see from here increasing. So from here to here, become 2 to 3, 2 to 3. That's why it's a gain, right? That's why it's a gain area. And this is the minimum unit we have to sell it, all right? Because nobody is willing to pay this price. So people will demand arise from 16, let's say. Quantity demanded start improving from 16. So that's why start from $2. So that's why we start preparing 16 for $2. So that's the reason behind this graph. Did you understand this graph? Yes or no? Yes or no? Say something. Any question? Say something. Yes or no? Or move on. Okay. So you asked me, show me the total revenue gain and total revenue loss area again. Why this area, so I repeat, why this area is a loss area, why this area is a gain area. So the idea is quantity demanded is $2, price is 16. If you want quantity demand increase, you have to reduce the price. Same thing, the law of demand. Quantity decrease, demand increase. So you have to reduce the price. If you reduce the price, what will be the impact of your total revenue? Your total revenue will increase? Obviously not. Your total revenue will decrease it if you increase if you reduce the price. Right? If you reduce the price from 16 to 14, your total revenue will be reduced by 4, right? By 4, right? And if you total revenue reduce, that's why this area is a loss area, because you're losing money by reducing the price. But when you reduce the price, your quantity demand will increase. Quantity demand increase, your total revenue also increase. So that's why increase means gain area, because quantity demanded increase. So gain area. All right. So that's why this is the loss area, this is gain area, and this point is a marginal. This point is a marginal revenue point. So that's why this area considered as a total revenue loss, total revenue gain. Any other question? Any other question, or we move on?
Teacher, so in the test, what kind of questions will it be like relate to this part?
What kind
What
of,
type of question?
you mean
Yeah,
in the
it's like
exam?
yes, you would
Exams,
tell us to
in the exams,
develop.
I can give you these numbers to draw a graph by showing where is your marginal revenue, where is loss area, where is profit area. Because on the basis of this information, I draw this graph. This is the conclusion. All right. This is the conclusion of this graph, or I mean these numbers, this table. So by using these tables, you may have to draw a graph like this. But again, this is not a complete graph because we haven't recognized the total cost or something like that. So this is just a graph to understand. This graph means graph like this in a competitive. So D equals to MR. Why D equals to MR? This graph and this graph is the same. All right, I explain you why D equals to MR, and this graph is why MR less than price. MR less than price, demanded or price. So this is not a complete graph. So we still have to move on by indicating the marginal cost, because we don't see any marginal cost here. Marginal cost is the same. It will be like this. So any question or move on? Any question or we move on? Say something, any question or move on? Okay, so last time some of you asked me questions that what is that green area? So the green area is a 0 to 2 units. So you have to sell, I mean, consumers are not willing to pay the price for those units. So you have to reduce the price to 2 units, $2. Yes, so you have to reduce the price to $16 for 0 to 2 units, right? And then if you wanna maximize your revenue, then 2 to 3. So if you want 2 to 3, then 16 to 14. 16 to profit is a profit area, right? So 0 to 2 means consumer, they are not demanding for that. It's too expensive. It's demand, but it's too expensive for them to buy it. If you want your revenue increase, you have to reduce, right? Reduce the price or maximize the quantity units. If you maximize the quantity units, so 0 to 2, you are not selling, right? So you want to sell more, so 0 to 2 starts. That's the meaning of that part. All right, so here is a graph for, this is your demand, this is your marginal revenue, right? And that's your quantity, right? So it's like this. Okay, now we're gonna draw a marginal cost, right? Marginal cost. So remember, MR equals to MC, where we have MR equals to MC. So your MC gonna be like this. So that's gonna be MC. MC. So that will be your MC. So MR equals to MC at this point, right? And yes, this point, if you produce these units, we have to find the average cost. Average cost gonna be like this. That's your average total cost, which is fixed plus variable. So this point, this point, this point. So that's your profit area point. Profit area point. Why? Because this is your cost. So let's say this is your cost. Whatever, let's say $10, right? So $14 here. This is your cost, all right? You have to, so if your 14 is your revenue, right? And 10 is your cost, 4 is your profit, right? But if you reducing the price, your profit also reducing. If you go below this price, so if you go below this price, let's say here, if you bring it here, then you're less likely to, so here your MR equals to P, all right? If you go more below this point, then MR will be higher than P. But we need MR more than P, MR greater than P. MR is 14, that's we look in the previous, MR is 10. MR is, so what we need MR less than P. So in the previous slides, we looked at MR was 10, which is this, right? No, it's not 10, it's MR 10. So MR 10. And P was 14. Right? So MR 10, which is here, and P is 14, which is here. And let's say this is $12 here. Average total cost is 12. All right. So the idea is we need this. So we need this, then we will maximize our profit. You cannot increase the price. If you bring it to 16, quantity demanded will reduce. I repeat, if price above 14, then quantity demanded reduce. As a result, total revenue reduce. All right. If MR, if price equals to MR, then we have a loss. If price become 14, cost is 12, we're gonna have a loss. If price less than MR, then still price is less than MR, still we have loss. So only we can maximize profit at these areas. We can maximize profit here. All right, so this is your profit area. You can't go below this one. You can just stay in this area. Stay in this area is the area for your monopolistic. All right. So that's the ideas for your monopolistic. And one more thing we need to know regarding this is okay. Now the question is, can I increase? If you increase the quantity here, increase the quantity, your marginal cost will increase it. All right. Reduce the quantity, you lose the opportunity to maximize your more units, because as I said, if quantity reduce, your total revenue, quantity demanded reduce, your total revenue also reduce. So that won't happen. This won't happen because your marginal cost will increase. Or you may not involve in this one. But again, if you want to involve in this one, if you want to maximize your units, you have to reduce the price. If your price is lower than the 12, you have a loss. All right. So that's the reason you will not increase the quantity, because as I said, increase the quantity, price decrease, right? If you want to sell more quantity, you have to reduce the price. If you reduce the price, if price below 10, or sorry, below this points, below this point, then no point to sell that unit because we're having a loss, right? So that's why cannot increase, cannot decrease. That's the whole idea for these concepts is a little bit different than your competitive firms, right? So is that okay? Is that okay? Any question? Yes or no? Or we move on to the next? Tell me if you have any question. Say something. Any question or we move on? The last concept, price discrimination. If P less than MR, we will have loss or profit. If P is less than MR, of course, we're gonna have always look at the average total cost. If you said that if we have P less than MR, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. This is the market price. P means market price, right? And MR means if you sell at this price to generate additional. Market price is $10, but you want to sell it at 12. Do you think consumer will buy it? Consumer will buy at $12? Of course not. So this is not a matter of profit or loss. Always remember, if you look at profit or loss, if you want to know profit or loss, you need price and cost. Then you estimate the profit or loss. Here is the price. Here is the price. So how can I know that is it profit or loss? All right. So, but the situation is, instead of you ask me this question that is it profit or loss, but if you ask me, is it possible if the price is less than marginal revenue? Answer will be no. It's not possible. As I said, the price is at $10, but you want to sell at 12. Do you think consumer will buy? Consumer will not buy, because consumer have option buy or not buy, right? They don't have any other option. If you're selling them at 10, but you want to sell them 12, they won't buy it, right? Okay, so I hope you understand. And the second question is, can you illustrate the MR above P and MR equals to P? Okay. If MR greater than P, MR greater than P, MR greater than P, I think the same thing. You asked me this question here, MR greater than P. But anyway, MR greater than P means you selling more than the price. Again, this one, I don't know why this thing happened. As I said, this will not happen. It will not happen. All right. So, but I can answer your next another question, which is MR equals to P. All right. If MR equals to P, if MR equals to P, your P become 14. Your P become 14. P become 14. Cost is oh sorry, P become 10, not 14. P become 10. Under monopolistic, MR equals to P means you have still more opportunity. You have an opportunity to maximize your profit. That's why MR equals to P means when price become $10. Price become 10, cost is 12. You have a loss. So you have an opportunity to make it profit. Yes, you want to increase your price to 14. All right, and cost 12. And you have profit 2. Price is 14. Price is 14 means price is more than marginal revenue. Price 14 means price more than marginal revenue. So if MR equals to P, so you have still opportunity to maximize the price. All right, don't keep it to 10. All right, don't keep it to 10 because this 10 is the lowest point. Right? Try to increase the price to 14, right? But don't bring it to 16 because if you bring it to 16, your quantity demanded will be reduced. Yes, pink area is a profit area. This is a profit area. Profit area. Yes, that is a profit area. Again, if you want to calculate profit area, you need to know cost. If cost, let's say, let me use another color. Let's use green. If your cost is this, then only this is your profit area. If your cost is this, all right, that's your loss area. That's your loss area. Same thing like as we look at competitive firm before. Competitive firm before. So that's, let's say that's your cost, that's your profit area. If your cost become like this, that's your loss area. That's your loss area, that's your profit area. All right, so same thing here, loss area and the profit area. All right. Is that okay? Okay, so let's move on to the next, if it's okay. Now next is the price. So this thing is finished, right? Let's move on to the next, price discrimination. So we will not study price discrimination through the graph. So I just want to simplify the explanation of price discrimination. So another topic, price discrimination. Price discrimination means when seller charge different price from different consumer for same product. For same product, right? When different price from different consumer, but for the same product. Let's say this pen, I'm selling to consumer A, $5, selling consumer to B, $5.5, selling consumer 3, $4. This is called the price discriminations, all right? So remember, under price discriminations, you do not increase the price because of the cost. This is the generally things happen. We adjust the price because of the cost, right? We want to keep the price high if the cost is high, right? But under price discriminations, you do not consider the cost, all right? So you do not use the cost to measure the price. That's going to discriminate among the consumers, right? So no cost. Okay. Now, next is price discriminations. So remember, this price discrimination is not an illegal price. You cannot consider as an illegal price, right? Is not a illegal. Price discrimination is not illegal, all right? So price discriminations is very common in all market. Price discrimination, common. So this price discrimination is common in all markets. All markets, then competitive market. Competitive market price discriminations may not be considered because in competitive market, cost is very important. Cost factor is very important, but under price discriminations, rather than the cost, right, you discriminate the price without looking at the cost. So what could be example for price discrimination if it's not illegal? Price example, best example is a movie, all right? Movie for senior citizens or movie for students, right? Students may have, if they bring their students ID, they have discounts, right? Same senior citizens, if they bring their identity, yeah, you don't need it, but sometimes some people, they don't look old, they look young. So they bring their identity, right? So they can have a low discounts, but for the adults, so there's no any discounts, all right? So that's called the price discriminations, right? Or special price for the, I don't know, for the disables. I don't know about the disables, right? But again, for I think the students and senior citizens are the best example for price discrimination. In fact, it is quite fair. Same thing happened for the bus fare, travel by trains or travel by buses. I don't know about in Vietnam, but in some countries, if you are a student or if you are a senior citizens, you have a discount. You have to show your student ID to get the discounts. All right, so traveling, but not by the airplanes, of course, but for trains and maybe trains or ferries or buses, right? So these public transports, you can have a discounts. So that's also the example of the price discriminations. So that's all about your topic 5. So topic 5 is finished. So any questions regarding topic 5? Any question, topic 5? Total revenue gain and total loss. Okay. So that's your demand curve. And now we have to find the quantity. So that's your same example. That's your $20, and that's your 16. So if the $16 price, quantity was 2. If it's 14, you reduce the price, quantity demanded increased. All right, 3 and 2.5. That's, and this is the price, which is 10. This is your marginal revenue, so which is somewhere here. It should be somewhere. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. So this area, it's a loss area, total revenue loss, right? And this area is your total revenue gain area. Now, what does it mean? Remember, if you sell at 16, your quantity demanded, this is quantity demanded, right? Quantity demanded. If you're selling at 16, quantity demanded is 2, all right? So in order to maximize the quantity, you have to reduce the price, because quantity demanded will increase if price is decreased, all right? So in order to increase the quantity demanded, because quantity multiplied by price is a total revenue. That we also look at, if you reduce the price, increase the quantity, revenue may increase, but it depends how many quantity you are selling. But let's assume quantity quantity demanded increase, because we reduce the price, total revenue increase. So if you reduce the revenue, reduce the price from 16 to 14, so you are losing money, you start losing money, right? But at the same time, you start selling more quantity, right? So selling more quantity. So that's why selling more quantity gives you gain. That's the meaning of gain area. Selling quantity gives you gain. Reducing price give you loss. That's why loss and the gain area. All right? That's why it's like this. Is that okay? Company losing revenue, loss of revenue. We are not calculating profit and loss. Here is a loss of revenue, gain of revenue. So loss of revenue, not loss of revenue. gain of revenue, gain of revenue. So in simple language, in this area, revenue reduced. In simple language, this area, because of this area, revenue increase. Because of this area, revenue decrease. You can say that. Is that okay? Any other question? Any other question? Yes or no? Say something. Okay, if no questions, so we stop here. Can we stop here? Yes, we have economic class next week. We're not gonna stop any our online our classroom classes, because as I discussed you last time, that if I give you all, we have a chance to do 3 online classes. So this is the second online class, right? So if we are doing online, we have a chance to finish this class early, so we have a more time to prepare for final exams, all right? So that's why I am teaching you online. But again, no any class cancel for next week. Next week you also have economic class, but in a classrooms, all right? I mean, in a university, all right? And then in the next class, we may discuss about next online class, all right? So for your economics class, I'll see you next week, all right? So next week Tuesday, yes, next week Tuesday, I'll see you for economics class. Understand? Yes or no? Yes. So we stop here. Yes. So I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.